They seem to have died. We'll talk about that in a second. Okay. So last time we made our project folder. We didn't have a project folder. I believe mine is still on the P drive here. If I go to P drive and I go to here, I go to here, there, there's my mini room. We made a renders, scenes, and a textures folder, right? So sometimes your textures may get lost if you don't put them in the right spot. So remember we found that wood texture that we used? If my wood texture didn't end up in this folder, like for some reason I just saved it to the downloads folder, and then when I went in Cinema, I connected it to the downloads folder, well, when I reboot, the downloads folder is gone, okay? So that texture doesn't exist anymore, so I'd have to re-download it. The other thing that we did was we went to the preferences, and under the preferences, we'll wait. Under the preferences. I don't know why that takes so long to open. Let's take a coffee break. There we go. We went to files and we have to reset our texture path too. Okay, that way it knows where our texture path is. So I'm going to go to the P drive, to my Sarcona folder, and I'm just going to click on my mini room and then hit OK. And then from there, it should automatically know where all my textures are. If that's not the case, then we'll look at it and see. Okay, and remember too, autosave is on here. If you turned it on last time and you forgot to, you want it on again, you have to turn it on every time because these preferences don't get saved. Okay. All right, so I'm going to open up my file. And you can open up your file too. There we go. Cool.
So go to scenes and open. Boom.
Yep. And so we should have that. You do get a glitch or whatever, a hardware issue, where it won't show the textures here, but when you hit the render button, it will show them. Okay, so that's sometimes just a hardware thing. You could reboot and then it may work. All right. So what I want to do is I'm just going to hide the stuff that I don't need right now. Okay, so or just move it off to the side. I'll probably just move it off to the side. There we go. And there's my floating TV screen. Rotate that.
Wood green.
With the wood grain in the middle, yes, that's exactly. It's Bob Belo's we're watching,
Oh, I see.
and it's on the floor too. See, it's like a crack house.
Oh no.
There we go. Okay, so now we want to start building a desk. So we always want to have a.
My stuff off because I got a lot of junk in here.
Just so you can see that too, if you have forgotten already. Oops. I'm going to grab my stuff. I'm going to go to my layers over here and just do a new layer from object selection. And that way I can double click it and say shelving units. And then I can turn the eyeball off if I want to hide those. Okay, you don't need to hide them. As long as they're out of the way, we're cool. Okay, now when we create this initial cube and we start building this, don't move it away from the center point. Okay, I'm going to create a cube. I'm going to lift it up so it's off the ground, but what I don't want to do is drag it in the red direction or the blue direction. I want to keep it right where it's at, okay? Then it's just a matter of resizing it to get that desktop shape the way I want it, okay? So it's going to be like rectangular like that. Okay, so we just created a cube, and then we just shrunk it down so that it would be that shape right there. Okay. Now all of these things we can edit later too. So if we decide that our desk is maybe too thick, we can always just grab the points and move them and adjust it however thick we want it to be. Okay. So that should be good enough. Now, do you remember how we can add divisions to this? We could do it with a knife. We'd have to go into edit mode for that, okay? But remember too, we have the attributes here, right? So we click on attributes, we click on our object, then we can just add segments right here. Okay, so I just clicked on the object, clicked on the attributes, and then we can edit this. So I've set 3, 1, 4, and that gives me 2 divisions this way, left and right, and then 3 divisions long ways, okay? Now obviously this matters which direction we go. If I were to go 3 this way, then my desk would be like really long. It wouldn't make sense, right? That would be a weird desk. Okay, so now we have the divisions in the correct spot. So now we need to, or we have the divisions on it, we need to move them to the correct spot. So now what should I do? Someone already said it. Edit. So we need to say, set this into edit mode. So we're going to hit C, right? And then what are we going to move?
Don't you have to go into the,
Go ahead. The points we can move, right? Now let me show you this, because points, edges, or polygons, or faces as I call them, you're pretty much moving or can move the same kind of things. But your ease of doing so is what will kind of dictate which one you want. So for this, I'm going to go to my rectangle selection and see how I have to marquee each one of these points in order to grab them. If I'm on edges and I'm in the move tool, all I have to do is just double click, hold down shift, and double click. And now I've grabbed the entire loop all the way around. So that way is actually a little bit easier to do using edges.
say that again?
Okay, so we're on edges, we're on the move tool. All we have to do is double click, hold down shift, and double click the next one.
Okay.
Okay, so now we have these two selected. So now how do we get them to go evenly apart? Scale tool. Oops. And if you're in the right software, there we go, then the hotkeys work. So now we just grab the red and we just drag it out. Now however far you drag this out, that's going to be the thickness of your leg. Okay, so if you want your leg to be like a chunky leg for your desk, then you want to make sure that you drug it far enough. And I'm just going to scale mine up just a smidge more. Okay. Now we need to do the same thing for these two. This one here and that one there, the opposite direction, those are going to be the same thing. And if I want my legs to be square, then I should kind of guesstimate as to how, even that is. Obviously that's not square in the corner. I need to, do my best to kind of get it there. Nobody will know if it's not perfectly square, which is perfect.
Excuse you.
Why does this look like that?
So remember your hotkeys, O on your hotkey sheet will zoom you right to whatever you have selected.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Some simple things that you may miss. So if you've ever used a 3D program before, typically if you click out into nowhere and you start dragging, nothing happens. But in Cinema, it'll actually like start moving or scaling. Okay, so you have to make sure that you're right on the handlebar so that you can drag it to where it needs to be. All right. Now this middle line we can double click, and then all we need to do is just move it. And however far we move that, that's where the divider or the shelving area is going to be set up. Okay. So if you want a really narrow one, you can put it here, and then this is where the person would sit. And then this is all bookshelf. That's like way too much. So I'm going to push it back like that. Plenty of desk space here. Maybe they have a tablet or something. I'll be right over there in a second.
This is not working.
All right, cool. So now we need to make the legs. So how would I take the legs and bring them out?
Grab the face and extrude it.
Yep. So we're going to switch to face mode, right? So a quick toggle is just the enter key. You hit enter, and now we're in face mode, and now we can grab faces.
So I've got to be underneath it?
Yeah, we just got to like angle underneath it like this.
Okay. And just grab, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. So we're just grabbing where we want to pull those edges out. Now again, think about different areas that you could add different definition. Not to this one specifically, but if we wanted to have a drawer or something there, we could also grab like the front face and extrude that too, and it'll look like a drawer, and then pull the legs on the side of it. There's lots of stuff you can do with just this basic concept. Okay, so now we're going to go to extrude. So we hit MT. That's one way to get to it, or you can just hit D. D is like the quick way to get to extrude. And then when you extrude it, don't drag up and down. So this is what people normally do. They click on it and they try dragging up and down. And look at how like slow it goes when I drag up and down. It's like ridiculous, okay? If you drag left and right with the mouse, see how fast it goes, okay? So you want to drag it to the right. You also want to make sure you don't click on the arrow. If I click on the arrow, I get this shape, okay? You have to drag right on the face to say extrude these faces, please.
So to get to the extrude, I hit M.
T. Or you can just hit D, either one.
And just grab it and go to the right.
That desk has got some legs.
It does. It knows how to use them. Okay. Now remember, anything we could update. So I want to shrink the desk, move it, whatever. I can grab points and move them around, or faces, or edges, or anything, and shrink the stuff. Right now, we're just kind of in the roughing it out stage. Okay.
Oh, I get that.
Yeah. Ba-da-ba-ba-doo. All right. Cool. Cool. So now we need to adjust this area. Okay. So here's what, watch mine here, because this is what you're going to think we're going to do first, is you think we're just going to like pull this up, and that's not what we're going to do, okay? There's a reason we're not going to do that, is because we are going to extrude it, but what I want to do is extrude kind of like I would for the bookcase, like where I want shelves to be, okay? So watch mine here. So the first thing on here is just the desk. So as I extrude and pull this up, I'm pulling it up to the basically the underside of the first shelf, like there. Then I'm going to extrude it again and extrude to where the board thickness would be. There's my board. That's the shelf. Then I'm going to extrude it again for my next shelf area. Then I'm going to extrude it again for my next board. Then I can grab these two and then just push them in. Okay?
So we need to select all of those.
So on her computer, I'll just do it to like this. So just pretend that that's something else. So when I extrude this in, you can see how there's like an opening right there. On hers, she had this create caps button on because someone yesterday left that button on. And so when you extrude it, it creates a cap right there. Okay. Sometimes it's actually useful. In this case, it's obviously not useful. So we just have to make sure that we either reboot the computer when you come in, or just be aware that there's a million settings and any one of them could screw you up.
So would be the point of that, like what you were doing there was like maybe you're trying to make like a drawer or something.
Right.
And is that what you could?
That's what you could use it for.
Like a drawer cover.
Remember when I did this one back here? Oops, this one here? If I didn't have that caps checked, I would get a hollow opening in there. Okay? So this area here, let me grab this.
Sorry, I'm getting a little sidetracked.
No, we're good. Let me just scoot him out of here. Whoops. Scoot him out of there. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to grab all these faces and just delete them. Okay. So now when I extrude this and I drag this in, see how it's hollow right there?
Yeah.
So that's where I would want to have that create caps on. That way it fills it in. Okay. Now I could have also gone the other way, like if I go this way and I turn create caps off, I don't notice it, but the back is hollow. Okay. But again, would I see it? I don't know. It depends on the angle. Right? So actually it wouldn't matter if I did it that way and just didn't see the background.
And you just shoved it up against the back of that wall.
Exactly. The better you're going to have success in the program, in the software. Okay. So this is why you want to keep this desk here. I modeled it backwards, whatever. Just rotate it around. There you go. So you want to keep the desk, everything you model, kind of at this standing point because you don't know where this desk is eventually going to end up. Let's say that I throw it into a corner at some point. So if I were to, I'm just going to duplicate this one so I don't move that one. I take this one, I throw it over here into the corner, and it's horrible feng shui. Let's just throw it here. There we go. Okay. So I put this desk like over here in the corner, but now I want to put a book on it, right? So I go through and I model a book. Pretend this is an awesomely modeled book. It's just a cube though. And I shrink it down. It's perfect. Right there. And now I have to go put it on the bookshelf, so then I scoot it over here. And now I have to go through the painful process of rotating this thing. And then oops. Holy cow. I don't know what happened there. We don't use books anyway, right? And then scooting it in, and then scooting it down, and then scaling again. Okay, so now that's one book, but now let's say I had 20 books or 30 books, or I had something I wanted to put on the desk like a laptop. There's 1,000 things that I could decorate this desk with, and it makes it 10 times easier if I keep everything right there, do all my stuff to the desk, and then just group it and move it over, okay? Especially for texturing purposes, holy cow. There we go. All right, so now for my stuff, I'm just gonna throw it into the back for now because I don't really care about it, okay? Oh, I'm not actually done yet, sorry, skipped a step. So on the bookcase, what was the last thing that we did to the bookcase to make it look fancy?
Bevel.
Bevel, right? So we're going to bevel this. So we switch to edge mode, right? We go to select Fong break selection, and we say select all, and that gives us all of our stuff. And hotkey is also all over the place, right? So Fong break selections hotkey is UN. So if you just go UN because you're going there like every 2 minutes, very easy to get to that. Boom, boom. Oh, look at that. These are hotkeys too. 0.98. So we've done select all. So now we have every edge that's a 90-degree angle. Okay, every edge we'd want to put a bevel on. So then we go to M to get to our menu. We go to bevel, which is S. And then just like before, you've got to zoom in close and then click and drag right on that edge very slowly. And then probably add some subdivisions in here just to make it nice and smooth. All right, so tools like bevel, they can actually be ways that we find out that our surface is kind of crapped out, okay? Just to give it a little example, let me just scoot him off the screen real quick. So if I grab one of these faces here and I go to extrude it and I pull it out, that's fine. But what happens sometimes is we extrude and then I put it back. Okay? And what happens is even though I extruded it and then put it right back, it still extrudes it. And there's basically like faces on top of faces. So then when I go to extrude again, you can actually see, it's subtle, but you can see there's a difference in this line right here. There's like a little bit of a thickness to it, right? So if I try to do a bevel to this, it'll prove me wrong and it'll work perfectly. Let's find out. MS. Yep, see, it works perfect. Let's do something different. Let's do the extrude. And we're going to create caps on this one, and I'm going to extrude this out. There we go. So now I'll go back to this, and now I'll say UN, select all, MS. There we go. Now it's not going to work. Perfect. Okay? So this is a good way to kind of see like, uh-oh, something went wrong. And for some of the cases, it's easier to go back and rebuild it. Sometimes you can simply just hit undo, you know, until you kind of diagnose like where the problem is. So if I go back this far and I do a bevel, then I could say, oops, UN, there we go. Bevel. Okay, and I know that that part was good, and then I could just start extruding from there again and try to work it out, okay? So sometimes you'll spend more time trying to fix the problem than it would be just to kind of go back and just remodel it. Especially this desk. It's taken us 45-ish minutes to model this desk from the time we walked in today, but a lot of that was me talking and a lot of that was showing stuff up here, all right? So by the end of, let's say, next week, you should be able to model the desk probably within 5 minutes, okay? Just because you've gone through and modeled a bunch of stuff already, that you're just used to it, okay? Cool. All right, so I'm going to throw my desk onto a layer. He's all done.
So just select it, layers, file, new layer from object selection.
Yep.
Name it desk.
Okay.
And turn it off.
All right, so it's always good to get it kind of out of the way. Also make sure that when you do select it, you're in the object model mode here, not still in the vertices, the edges, or the faces mode, okay? So just make sure you're still up here when you select the stuff. All right, so now we're gonna do a chair. So let's, so we're building a cube first. If you know the steps, just go ahead and do them. If you go too far and it's wrong, you can always hit undo. Okay, so we made our cube. I added 3 divisions in the X, 3 divisions in the Z. And that gives me a nice base to start off with.
Again, how do we add the divisions?
Remember, you have to switch from layers to attributes.
Attributes.
Yep, and then make sure you're on object. Now sometimes it won't, like if I switch tools, that object is now gone. So I have to deselect and then reselect my object before that comes back and I can add those divisions.
I still don't see the object.
Are you in object mode, model mode?
Yeah.
You did it wrong. Okay, so now we have the divisions, so now we would hit C. And then this part we've done already, just stretching those out. Remember, we're in scale, not move, and we're only grabbing the one direction.
Okay. I hit C.
Oops. All right, I need to move my guy up a little bit more. There we go. It was just too close to the ground.
Now, am I better off to Z back and extrude them again if they're not long enough?
No, at that point you want to just grab them, grab just the faces in the bottom, and move them, okay? So when we extrude, all it's doing is creating new faces here, right? So if I accidentally went too short, now I could grab the arrow and just pull it.
Oh, so now I'm still in extrude.
Right, that's fine. You can still just grab the arrow. Because the arrow won't
Okay,
actually extrude
cool.
it again, it'll just move it,
Okay, cool.
okay? With everything we do, we try to keep the division count as low as possible. So we don't want to have like stuff there for no reason. And I still have create caps on, so I have to turn that off. And push that down. There we go. Okay. So now we have the legs on the chair, so now we need to create the backing. So this is going to be different. So you're going to learn a new tool for the backing. Let me go here. Another tool. So I'm just going to scoot these over just so the backing has a little bit more room. And I'm going to grab these two and just scale these in. So now those little posts that are on the side of the chair, that's how thick those posts are going to be. Okay? Right here and right there. That's how thick the post is going to be. Right there and there. Okay? So I just I scaled these edges in just to squeeze them a little bit. And then I moved these edges out. Okay. I'll hit undo. Okay.
Okay.
So this one here, there's nothing to scale it with, right? So there's nothing to scale. So if I switch to the move tool, then I could just move it over. Okay. So I just move it towards the front of the chair. And then these two, I just scale these in. All right. So now we're going to extrude these guys up. Okay. Now this can be done several different ways. I'll show this way here, just because you're familiar with it, and then I'll show a different way. Okay. So the way you're familiar with is the way we did the bookshelf a second ago. So I'm going to drag this up until I hit a rung. That's where I want one of my rungs to start. Then I'm going to drag it up again for how thick I want the rung to be.
Okay.
And then I'm going to drag it up again for the distance between the rungs, then drag it up again for how thick I want the rung to be.
And click.
Okay, so now what this gives us is our rungs and our pulls that are be on the side of where they're going to be. Okay. The problem with this method that I typically like, beginners, sure, it works perfect. You don't have to have your stuff being perfect at this stage. But the more accurate you want your stuff to be, the more detailed you have to get into it. So I'm going to undo that real quick. And I'm going to drag it up until I hit a rung. Like this is the center of a rung. Then I'm going to drag it up again for the center of a rung. Then I'm going to drag it up again for the top piece right there. Okay, so I'm going to have a rung right here, a rung right there, and then I'll have a top piece. So now if I go to my edges, and I double click, I can just use Bevel. And you'll see what Bevel does is it automatically adds those divisions there. I just take it down to 0, and now I have these two are exactly the same size. Okay, so I grab an edge, that's what we had those there for, and then I can just extrude or bevel those to get a division. Okay, so if I just want it evenly spaced, I just put those in the middle. All right, And then up here, I would go to the knife tool, and then there's another tool inside the knife tool called plane. And what this allows me to do is put one in a specific plane. So I'm going to set this to X and Z, and you can see how I can evenly put this there. Now I could have also done this. I could have just extruded it straight up and then used plane just to drop in the divisions of where I wanted those to be instead of extruding 3 times. So I'm going to put that one there, and there we go. Okay, so essentially we have the same results. It's just a matter of I got to it a little bit different. Okay. Cool. So now what we have to do is connect this side to that side. So bridge is our next tool. Okay. So watch how bridge works. So I need to get here so I can see both faces. That's not the right ones. These are the right ones. So this face here and that face there. I go hit M, and then I go to bridge, which is B. Okay? And what bridge does is says, here's a face, here's a face. I'm just going to connect those. I'm going to draw a bridge across those 2 faces. So now we just drag this, and you'll see there's a line. Okay? So this corner here is where the line is, and it's going to the opposite corner. I want to make sure it goes to the same corner. And now it'll connect it. Okay? So now those 2 pieces are connected. If I did it the wrong way, it'll actually twist the surface, which will obviously look weird. Okay, so we just drag that across. Then I switch back to my move tool and select. Then I switch back to my bridge tool and bridge. Then I switch back to my move tool to select. Back to my bridge tool to bridge. All right, if you got this far and then you've gone ahead, you're cool. And then I'm just going to show you what the next step would be, which is just to put in that bevel, right?
Yeah.
So the same step, we go to the Fong break, we select all, and then we add that bit of a bevel to it.
How do you know how big, look at me, the desk and the chair is like a Lily Tomlin
Right.
chair. So you can't even fit under the desk. How do you know how big your object really is?
You don't. It's all just eyeballing, right?
Scale
So
it.
once you have it kind of set up initially, then you can go ahead and exactly, you just scale it.
Oh, yay.
So I can scale this down and then just, you know, what looks good, and that's probably too small. There we go. Now you could also,
How do you just,
how do you scale it?
the whole thing is scaling.
Right. That's what you want, right?
Okay, well, yeah, I guess.
Now if you wanted different pieces, like let's go crazy with how out of proportion this might be.
Like my desk is up to the roof.
There we go. So now I scale my chair down, and obviously this is,
My chair.
Crazy.
Ah,
Yeah.
my chair. My chair.
it's a Minions chair. So if we need to adjust anything like that, all we have to do is go to either the points or the edges. We just make sure we marquee them all and then move them to the correct height.
Okay.
Okay? Now that works too with these rungs. Come on, there we go. So I could also grab the rungs and then just adjust these too. So if I wanted these to be maybe shorter, I could just move that grouping up. And then another thing you can do while we're showing different things, let me just make this a little bigger. Uh-oh, whoopsie. Go back to object mode. Scale. Oops. Come on, there we go. So if you've ever had to sit in an office chair for more than like 5 hours a day, you know that they can be incredibly uncomfortable. So you should have some stuff built in so that's a little bit more comfortable. So if I go into here with my knife tool again and I switch to edges, remember that plane one that I showed, I'm going to switch to the YZ plane. Make sure restrict to selection is off. YZ, that should be working. No, XY, whatever. Click on that, and now I have an extra row of divisions going straight down. So now I can grab on that row of divisions just with my marquee tool And then I could just give this a little bit of angling backwards. The marquee tool is actually pretty sweet, where you don't have to switch to the move tool like back and forth. It just, once you're in it, you can marquee and move stuff. Even the chair, I can just give this a little bit of a bend down so your butt has a spot to sit in.
I have the worst time navigating this.
That'll come. 3 Q. Oh, that is my bookcase. There he is. Cool. All right, now here's just another thing that, like, if you wanted to add some more detail to this, like last time we looked at that video, the 3rd and the 7th, and we saw how they did that bookshelf, right? They just basically had a cube, and they just put a picture of a row of books on there, and that was a bookshelf, or a row of books. If you wanted to create something that's a little bit more realistic looking, typically, like if you play video games or if you watch movies, they have what's called level of detail. The stuff that's further away is really low res, and then as the camera gets closer, it actually shows a higher res version. So as they're building something like a bookshelf or a desk or a drawer or whatever, they actually will build it in iterations. So they'll take like the high res version, make it super pretty, and then downgrade it so that they have these lower res ones for further on. And what that does, it speeds up their workflow so that something way back there isn't as high res as something that's really close to the camera. So like this book is something that I could create pretty simply. That. I think that's how many I had before. Okay, so I have enough divisions here, and again, this is something that I've done before, so I know how many divisions that should be there. And so what I'm going to do is just kind of move these over here. You're not doing this part. If you want to watch the video and follow this later, you can. There we go. Oops. That's where cinema is different than Maya. I want to just drag stuff. Can't drag stuff. There we go. And then this and this. I'm going to shrink it in and then move it back. Cool. And then I can grab those faces. And then I just do a little extrude. You'll see where it's kind of making these weird shapes. If I go over here to the minimum angle and I just up that to 90, you'll see that it gets rid of that shape. And so now I have a book. Okay. Oh, I forgot the binding. Can't forget the binding. Let's go here and there. Squeeze that in. There we go. Well, now it's going to look like a proper book. It's a huge book, but again, we can just scale this down. Okay, and then duplicating stuff inside here, you can hold control and then just drag stuff, and then you'll get duplicates. Okay, same thing with materials. If you make a material, and let's say this is a pink book, I drag it onto one of them. I don't want like all my books to be pink, so I can control drag a new material, and then change the color, and then drop it onto the next book. And then control drag that one, give it a different color, yellow, there we go. And then drag that onto a different book.
Ooh, primary.
Okay. We could also grab the faces, like if this was, obviously the pages wouldn't be yellow. But like we saw last time, we can grab individual pieces of this, like that, and that, and that. And then we'll make a new material, and then we'll drop this onto that. And now we have, oops, white pages. Okay, so there's lots of different things that you can do with just those tools. All I did here, I added enough divisions, and it was simply just moving the points into the right spot, and then just extruding for the pages. That's all I had to do for that, okay? Now, I make it look simple because I've done this like a trillion times, okay? So don't think that because it's easy for me that it should be easy for you. It's not going to be. It's going to be difficult. You're going to struggle with it, but the idea is you struggle, but then you get easier and easier and easier to do this stuff. I don't think I showed the story in this class. Maybe I did. Oh well. I had a student two semesters ago, who built a chair. And he built a chair, and it took him like 3 hours to build a chair. And then his file crashed, and it was gone, and it didn't have anything. So then he built another chair, and that one took him an hour, and it turned out better. And then it crashed again.
Oh, no.
So the next chair took him 20 minutes, and it was better than the other ones. So see, just in that one night, he went from a 3-hour chair to a 20-minute chair. So eventually you'll get to the point where what we're doing becomes easier and easier and easier. It's simply a matter of just practicing it, okay? Those 4 tools, right? We have knife tool, we have the bevel, extruding, and now the bridge tool. Those ones can be used across the board for lots of different things. I only showed it on one, guys, but let me show you this, that the bridge tool can also do edges. So if by accident I clicked on this face, I guess that face, sure, and I deleted it, I can use the bridge tool in edge mode to rebuild that face. Okay, so if you accidentally delete something, it's not the end of the world. You can just bridge that back together again. Okay, so for the next rest of the class, what I want you to do is just experiment with stuff. Look at images on Google. Find some stuff that is simple to model that you could add into your scene. That's how fast I type. Nope. I haven't met a computer that can keep up with me. Maybe Chrome. Hey. Yeah. Bedroom. Years ago, it was funny. We used to do a toy room. That was like the intro project. And every time we look up toy room, it was like a girl in a bikini, like the first picture. Not sure how that has anything to do with anything. Get the bedroom.
There's some innuendo in there. So.
Right. So stuff like this, really simple to do. Like if you look at that clock, it's basically just a bunch of like spheres or cylinders that they just put like in a row, like around it, right? And then just some basic shapes here. This bookshelf, obviously we made that. You could make this chair kind of simply ish. One thing that does help when you model stuff too, let me show this because I think you'll like it. So let's say the back of that chair we want to model, okay? So I'm just going to hit C on this one and then just shrink it in like that. Oops. Sure, I'll use the knife tool. I'll go to edges and I will go to loop. And I'm just going to drop in, like, here's one for the middle so that it can bend backwards. And then I will go and grab that and then just push it back like that. Okay. Now go back to this. And these things up here are different operations you can do to stuff. So this subdivision one, watch what happens when I click on this surface. I hold down the Alt key and I click on that subdivision. Boom.
What?
Nice.
So what it does is it takes that square shape and then it rounds it off and smooths it. Okay? So even our chair over here, we could go and do this to it also. It's not going to be perfect, but it definitely looks a lot better than just having it kind of blocky. So we just Alt, click on it, and then it pops it into this group. Okay?
So click on the object and then
Hold down Alt, and then just click it.
How do I know what it's gonna do?
Whatever object you have selected. Oh, of these, it just does that subdivision surface by
Okay.
default.
So click, Alt.
Okay. Now, if you look at how it's organizing it, there's actually a subdivision surface object now over in our outliner, and that chair is inside it. So if I pull the chair out, the chair is no longer subdivided. I put the chair back in, it is subdivided. Okay. I could also check the checkbox off, and that will also turn it off and turn it back on. Okay. So look at different things you could find on on Google that you could add to your scene. Someone made a couch the other day, and again, it was just this kind of rough modeling of it, and then adding that subdivision, and then boom, it looks like an awesome couch. Just a quick demonstration of a couch.
Ooh, that's kind of funky. I did that, but now when I look at the chair, it's really weird looking. When I do the render, it's all blotchy.
Right, and then we'd have to fix that after. So pretend that that's his couch. I actually want to grab these two, I think. I need my knife tool. I need this. That. Nope. That. That's good. There we go. Perfect. And then we alt click on there, and then we get this really like inflatable couch type thing. Okay? Not perfect, but definitely better than it was before. And then we can also use the knife tool as a way to hold surfaces. So with it like this, you can see how round the bottom is. It looks kind of silly. But if I add a division down here, right at the bottom, and then I do that, you'll see that that bottom holds that hard edge better. Okay, because there's more divisions there. There's not enough for it to round off. And the same thing here. I could put a division there and there, add that subdivision, and now I'm creating just mayhem. There we go. More subdivision. Awesome.
Oh,
So comfy. I want to take a nap. Cool. Okay, so there's lots of different things you can do with this. It's simply a matter of kind of getting an idea and then doing something simple with that idea. Even stuff like these steps, you could just use cubes and lay them out like that. The closet, same thing. You could just add some cubes to create those. That could be just another subdivision thing. Here's another bed. If you go crazy and you start looking up videos, you'll see how you can do... This is a fun thing. When I first got into 3D, my favorite thing was dynamics. So in every package I get into, I have to figure out where the dynamics are and start playing with them. So this here, just make that bigger. That. And I need more divisions. Cool. So I'm going to go to this guy, and this is all different things inside here. And I'm going to go to cloth. I'm going to click on this guy, and I'm going to go to cloth collider. And now, maybe if I hit play, oh! It's awesome, isn't it? Okay. So this is the kind of thing that we can play with, and this is where I encourage you to try to find different things out there, because if I hadn't showed you that, I wouldn't have just blown your mind.
I was saying, I feel like we're all a little way too amused about this. That's great.
Yes. It's amazing, isn't it? And the more divisions we have, the finer that detail is in the blanket, so that we could actually create something that looks, you know, not so splotchy and ugly. And then I can even take that blanket and put a subdivision on it, and oh my gosh, gorgeous. Okay, so enough of me playing.